back to my channel if you've been here before. If not, welcome. My name is Ashley and I'll be doing my June TBR. June's going to be my first month genuinely outside of grad school. I am still working, so I have things on my workload, but because I don't have to focus on academic reading, I'm really able to delve into stories that are more complex or thought-provoking. So I'm going to be reading a couple of books that have been on my TBR for a very long time, whether that be like Shakespeare, classics, contemporary, what have you. And I also have a couple of books that for me are a little bit more ambitious because I know that I want to focus on many aspects of the book and the world building of the book. So that first one is going to be The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is a fantasy book, a tome at that. I haven't read like fantasy in a really long time, especially not like fantasy that is fantasy primarily. This book, I don't know a lot going into it, but it does have a lot of elements that I tend to really enjoy. It's heavy. That I tend to really enjoy when I see them in other genres. So there's a lot of talk of like kingdoms, there's heirs that need to be had, there's a really tumultuous time in this like world, as well as like a sapphic romance and dragons, all things I really enjoy and love and would love to like really have the time to read it, break it down, and enjoy it. A lot of my friends who have read this like really love the book, and I think that even though it's super big, it will probably be like a really good introduction book for me personally in terms of fantasy. So I'm really enjoying this being on my TBR for June, and hopefully I get to it and finish it and love it. The second book I really want to read, I also don't know much about, and I want to keep it that way, and that's James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room. I know this covers 1950s Paris, and it's a young man finding himself caught between desire and conventional morality, and it covers a highly controversial story of death and passion that reveals the unspoken complexities of the human heart. And that seems like really interesting to me. James Baldwin, in terms of authors, is an author that I really would love to read like everything that's in his backlist. So this is going to be like my introduction into his work, and a work that I know a lot of people really love and enjoy. So I'm going into this heart open, mind open, and really hoping to enjoy it. This definitely isn't like the caliber of writing I tend to pick up, so there'll be a lot to think about even though the book is like fairly short, but I'm hoping that I enjoy it, and if I don't understand it, I'm not against Googling. From there, I have one Shakespeare and one classic that I'm very, very excited to read. So for Shakespeare for the month, I'm going to be reading Hamlet. Hamlet heavily involves ghosts. I'm a huge ghost person. I don't know why, but I love like a ghost spirit element in a book, no matter what the genre is. And basically, apparently, Hamlet's father comes to him in his like spirit form, and he basically asks Hamlet to avenge him and kill the current king, which is Hamlet's uncle and I believe the king's brother. And because it's one of Shakespeare's like biggest tragedies, there's a lot of death to be had, a lot of talk about like humanity and like decision making, and I'm very excited for that. I read Romeo and Juliet in May, and it actually shockingly surprised me how much I enjoyed it. But I feel like I enjoyed that because I found the work to be more humorous than it should have come off to me. So I'm really hoping that with Hamlet, those themes come across in a way that is genuine and the way that they were supposed to. I'm also going to be reading The Scarlet Letter, which from the vague understanding I have of it, a woman gives birth to a baby and she won't let her town, which is like Puritan Boston, Massachusetts, know who like her lover was. She had this baby out of like adultery, so there's a lot of talk of sin and like secrecy because she won't let people know who like the child's father is, and she's forced to like walk around with like the scarlet letter A for like adultery. And while she's like walking around, there's like a lot of like public shaming and punishment for like sins and like secrecy, and there's like this struggle for like new life and repenting and dignity being like formed, which all sound super interesting to me. In terms of like classic works that I feel like I've consumed the most, like retellings or like adaptations of, The Scarlet Letter is that for me. Like, I have consumed this story many, many times, but I have never read the actual original. So I'm really looking forward to that. I feel like I'm gonna love it. So I'm hoping that it's like a great read, especially in terms of like the classics I've been reading lately, which some I've loved and some I have pretty much hated or only tolerated. I'm also going to be reading The Boatman's Daughter, which sounds really spooky. It's apparently a thriller, but there's some kind of like supernatural elements to it. Let me pull it up. I'm on my laptop right now. So, ever since her father was killed when she was just a child, Miranda Crabtree has kept her head down and her eyes up, ferrying contraband for a mad preacher and his declining band of followers to make ends meet and to protect an old witch and a secret child from harm. But dark forces are at work in the bayou, and when the preacher makes an unthinkable demand, it sets Miranda on a desperate, dangerous path, forcing her to consider what she's willing to sacrifice to keep her loved ones safe. And that just sounds so good to me. I've been reading a lot of books that are like spookier and have like more suspense elements in them. So I'm really looking forward to reading this one in specific. Plus it has like the coolest cover I've seen in like a really, really long time, which you'll see wherever I put it up on screen. But it looks so cool to me, so I'm very excited to read it. Like, it gives me almost like Wendigo vibes, which I always love that imagery, so that's gonna be really fun. I also want to read With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. Literally, I've read some of her other work and absolutely loved it. I listened to The Poet X on audiobook, which is the reason I want to pick this up on audiobook, because it was amazing on audiobook. And this basically covers like a teen mom and her daughter. She's a senior in high school right now, and because she's a teen mother, she has to make like a lot of hard decisions, including like sacrifices, because she doesn't have like the financial like liberties to do a lot of things. And when she does have money, she knows that she needs to put her daughter first, but she's still like a senior in high school, going through like this huge coming in age, a huge transition point. And she has these passions and desires that she wants to follow, these dreams that she has, and it's really hard trying to navigate that. In specific, I know that she wants to like be like a chef or like a cook or whatever, and she doesn't have the time for like her school's new culinary arts class, doesn't have the money for like her class's trip to Spain, and she shouldn't be dreaming of someday working in a real kitchen. And she's like dealing with all these rules and expectations and like responsibilities and trying to navigate all of that, and that seems really fun. I have not read any like books where teen parents are involved, especially not like from this point of view and like current timing of them being 18. So this should be like really interesting. When teen parents are involved in like romances I read or stuff like that, they tend to already be like in their 20s or 30s, and they talk about like how difficult it was for them, but we don't see that firsthand. So this should be super interesting. Like I said, The Poet X was amazing, so I already know that like Elizabeth is gonna hold it down and give me a really great and fun read. What else is on my TBR? And then my final book on my TBR is Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. So I'm a sucker for The Hating Game, and I really, really enjoyed 99% Mine, but I know a lot of people didn't enjoy it, and everyone says that if you did enjoy 99% Mine, you're gonna love Second First Impressions because it's a really great book. And from my understanding, it's Ruthie and Teddy. Ruthie is working at this retirement villa, and she's been working there for like 6 years or so now. And her pretty, like, entire life is pretty much just the retirement home, the work she does there, her interactions with like the residents there, and she's really, really passionate and loves like her job there, as difficult as it may be. It seems like she spends a lot of her time maintaining like the property, and because so much of her identity is in this like retirement home, she feels like she's kind of like lost herself along the way. And then Teddy is pretty much the opposite. He's not responsible at all, but his father actually owns this like retirement like villa, and Teddy doesn't have anywhere to stay. His father says that he can stay there, but he has to pretty much like help maintain the grounds, help fix everything up. Ruthie kind of doesn't want to deal with him at first, it seems like, and tries to push him off on like these two like older eccentric like residents who kind of give people a hard time, but he actually like meets them where they're at, is like a perfect match for them. And as he like is involved in like the retirement like villas like community culture, it's so obvious like how well it works for him. He's able to really interact with the residents, and they kind of fall for each other. And Ruthie finds out that the only reason his father wants to like fix up the property is because he wants to sell it. So she's forced to kind of really think, oh, is his actions genuine? Does he like really want to be here, or is it all like to meet this ends of like selling the property? So I love that I actually kind of know where the third act conflict is going to go. I love romance, but it stresses me out so bad when we hit the third act conflict, just because I want the conversation to be had. But I really understand where this is like kind of unfolding, and I also understand like why Ruthie and Teddy like might be in this situation, why Ruthie might be upset. So that makes it a little easier to go into it. But that is like all of the books I want to read in terms of June. A little ambitious for me, especially figuring the prior year for the Orange Tree is smooth over 700 pages, but I'm hoping I get to everything, and I'm hoping I have a really good reading month. Oh, it might be 800 pages. This is gonna be a good time. But I hope that you guys have like a really great reading month. If you stayed this long, like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to. Otherwise, I'll see you guys later. Bye.